off, or did you want us to?
Yeah, I'll kick it off real quick. So team, we're a little light today, given I think summer schedules, but thanks for joining. And we've got Tom, Mike, and team from WealthPoint, which is a firm here in Phoenix that are good friends of us, both personally and professionally, and have a very kind of cool business. They do insurance on one side of it, and then business advisory on the other. So I've engaged with Tom and Mike on some things and their team on the insurance side, but then also their business advisory side, which is pretty unique as far as a combination. They don't manage money, so not a competitor of ours, and I see them only as a partner. And Tom offered to maybe get together with our group and had a C package presentation ready to go on insurance through an advisory lens, and wanted to offer their services to you all. So that, take it away, Tom.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, great to get to spend time with y'all. Very excited. The topic we're covering today is undoubtedly my favorite topic, especially for folks that are new to us and haven't worked with WealthPoint. We call it insurance through an advisory lens, and what we mean by that, Mike will expand on it when I hand it over. But one of our basic beliefs, if you look at our team, especially on the insurance advisory side, 2 weeks ago was 25 years in the life insurance industry for me. It's about the same for Mike and many of us. And when what we all have in common when we started in the business, we very quickly saw the misalignment of the life insurance industry with the client's best interests and the client's needs. So the way that we operate and what we mean when we say insurance through an advisory lens is life insurance strategy or life insurance delivered through and with the counsel of a fiduciary advisor. Very different than what you typically see in the industry. But today's session is all about pulling back the curtain and showing you things about how life insurance works, how it's designed, that will help you to be a better fiduciary to your clients when it comes to being their watchdog or being their protector as it pertains to all parts of their financial picture, but specifically today, when you're seeing cash value life insurance or approaching those strategies, how do you be a better fiduciary for your client? So some of the housekeeping things, first and foremost, learning objectives. We've got we'll go through a few concepts. Sorry, Mike, I'm talking all over the place. Discussing the elements of policy design. We'll introduce you to a concept called blending. Discussing informal versus formal underwriting, which can be a very big thing for your clients. And at the end, we'll do our best to leave some time for Q&A. But going on to the next slide, just some housekeeping things for this. With such a small group, if you have questions along the way with the point that Mike is talking about, feel free, unmute yourself, speak up. I don't think we need to keep it too formal with a group of this size. As Bob mentioned, this counts for continuing education for both the CFP designation, as well as if there's any CPAs on the call, you can double up and have CPE and CE. What comes with that is a set of rules. Obviously, for all the folks needing continuing education, you got the instruction of log on from your computer so we can see that it's you on here. And then one of the things along the way that they make us do is there will be some polling questions at different intervals throughout the presentation. What you'll see afterwards is we will send out a survey. Takes like 30 seconds to fill out, but one of the things that you'll fill out in that survey is your CFP number or your NASBA number for CPA credit, if applicable. So if you finish this caller and go, hang on a second, they don't even have my CFP number, that'll be coming in arrears. And then after that, we'll get certificates out within 30 days. So that being said, I want to jump right in because I know these concepts take a little time and they always get a lot of questions. So I'm going to hand it over to Mike to take us from here.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time, especially in the summertime when you can take vacations and get out of town. So to add on to Tom's initial point of fiduciary. We're never fiduciaries. We can't be, because we get commissions, but it doesn't mean we can't create kind of a best practices model slash process slash behavioral system. And that's really our objective. We don't hunt clients directly. 99% of our clients come from another fiduciary-based professional. So because of that, our model is built to interact with you and be a great partner to help you deliver value and create efficiency. So take time off of your, or add time to your plate that you would normally spend time in the insurance world, and then enhance the analysis, the deliverable, and the outcome of what a client experiences, right? Without you having to put in all that effort to do it. So one of our uniquenesses is, one is that behavioral model versus let's just go sell stuff, right? And that's kind of our industry, is very market driven, strategy driven, kind of pushing ideas through to clients versus solving problems. So with that being said, our Wealth Point structure, there's two different divisions. There's an insurance advisory service, which we're going to go through today, and then there's a business advisory service. And to Bob's point, is that's one of our uniquenesses, is we have about 35 people, about 25, 26 on the IAS side, and the balance on the BAS side. We have 6 consultants on the BAS side that just work with business owners doing succession, exit, transition, executive comp, structures, ESOPs, everything you could possibly imagine on that side, without an agenda. So very much a consultative business advisory kind of group. Well, in that education on that side comes in the IAS. So we're really broad and deep in the knowledge base when it comes to sophisticated clients. And a lot of those have owned businesses, or they're in the C-suite arena where they're interacting in businesses. So we're here to help in both of those areas, brainstorm, all of that. On the insurance advisory services, we have some really unique high-level skill sets for private placement life insurance, really, really strong there. One of our partners works with a lot of billion-dollar family groups. So when it comes to ultra fluent, real complex planning, we got one of the best gentlemen in the country in that space. And then we have some uniqueness in retirement asset maximization plan, which is unwinding large qualified plans. And then on the BAS side, we real expertise in non-qualified executive compensation planning. That kind of intertwines with us a lot. So those are some niches. We're built different, and I'll kind of go through these really quick. What we want to share is some points or some philosophies that produce a great outcome in the insurance world to kind of help educate, but to lay out kind of a best practices of what a process should be like if you're evaluating insurance, right? Obviously, this is our system that we're sharing, but really what we want the translation to be is, what are we delivering, and is our current situation really delivering the value that it could? And if not, we're here to help, right? So very easily you can have a support system to help potentially deliver a insurance side. So we've kind of hit these points, but most of the insurance organizations are sales driven. They're not very collaborative with the other professionals. It's more, let's get in, let's sell our stuff and get out before the other professionals kind of come in and knock my ideas. There's conflicts of interest, right? We get paid commissions, and our firm does still get commissions, but it doesn't mean you can't do a better version of that. There's very little disclosure in our world. We're the opposite of that. We'll disclose compensation. And one of the things we're going to talk about in blending is we purposefully reduce our compensation. We take it away very purposefully to make better products. And we'll share that with you. And then service. Your industry went through this immense disclosure and realignment to this more AUM or fee-based model where you have to deliver value all the time. And yes, you get paid a reoccurring revenue to do that, but it's aligned. Our industry, we get upfront compensation, so it incentivizes people to sell stuff and not service we have a whole process on, if you have a permanent insurance policy, it should be reviewed, and not just here's an in-force illustration, but to a set of goals and objectives like you do a retirement plan. And we have a process that does that. So basically, we took all of the misaligned areas and just recreated processes, procedures, systems to behave like you guys do in that fiduciary world and client-centric kind of solution-driven philosophy. So I think one of the disbeliefs is these insurance products are all the same. It's a commodity, and it's just a matter of who you get it through. And that's completely incorrect. And it would be kind of taking HoyleCohen and lumping you with every wealth advisory company out there. They're the same. That's not the case, right? Spending time doing holistic planning, helping clients through all of that. Not all wealth advisory firms do that, right? A lot of them just gather assets, create an asset allocation model, say they do planning, right? But they don't spend the time and the detail on all of that. That's a huge differentiator. Sophistication, right? All those things are different. So the things we want to talk about is policies. You can make an impact on what the client receives by the design, right? Doing the right stuff to the contract, using the right products, using the right carriers, and knowing what is out there. That's a big part of the problem in our world is a lot of agencies, systems, you get exposed to a certain set of products or a certain philosophy. So you don't know what you don't know. And that's a big, big problem. So design. Blending is another enormous issue, which is how much compensation are we getting that has to be built into the pricing of the product. There's nothing for free. So if we make less money purposefully, that means they can build a product that has less internal costs, right? Which becomes more efficient. Underwriting, right? One of the costs that is in that contract forever is based off of the underwriting class that you got when you purchased the contract. Did you get a preferred rating? Did you get a standard rating? That affects the cost of insurance forever. So how much effort are you putting in to maximizing that, right? That takes a lot of effort and time, people, manpower, and we'll talk about that a little bit. That has an enormous impact. And then once you do hopefully have the best possible thing, how are you managing and staying on top of it, right? In your world, sometimes an allocation model at the time was great. Jump ahead 15, 20 years, and the client's in a completely different financial situation, family situation. The same allocation does not, right, accomplish the same goals and objectives here. So you've got to maintain, adjust, tweak, and in your world, right, things that are out of your control, the economy, the interest rates, all those things come into play to what conversations you have and how you design the allocation you should have. It's the same in our world. So the first one is blending impact. So what we can say statistically is about when we do a lot of reviews. So one of the things we're going to talk about is a best practice of if you have a client that has a policy, what do? Right? Very easily you can say, great, I have a copy of it in my system and I got an in-force illustration and it's going to last age 100, so it must be good, right? Or you can say, great, how do we optimize this policy? So one of those things I mentioned was blending. When we review policies that come from individuals like yourselves that say, what does this policy look like? Is it performing? Is it good? Tell me about it. 85 to 90% of the time, policies are not blended. What that means is there's inherent embedded costs inside that contract forever that are there. So it might not be the most efficient policy. And when we look at these and we say, great, unblended policy, what can we do when we do a market study? About 85% of the time, we can drastically improve that contract by 20 or 30%, meaning the cost goes down to get the same death benefit, or you can buy 20 or 30% more death benefit for the same dollar. Or if we're trying to control the cash value, we can get 20 or 30% greater outcomes. Really significant. So in your world, it's taking an asset allocation model that you onboard a client and the fees and everything are 1.75%, and you can deliver the exact same portfolio or a better portfolio at 80, 90 bips all in. That has an enormous impact over time on what the client's going to receive, their rate of return, all of that. That's the same in our world. It's a choice to do a lot of these things, right? Just like it's a choice in your world, how much planning and what's the depth you go to with those clients. You can keep a client and not do a lot of planning, right? Or you can do an immense amount of planning and create value. All those are choices. So in our world, it's what are they choosing to do in underwriting, blending, product knowledge, all those kind of things to deliver a different experience. So to this blending point, real simply, if there's lower compensation, that means there's less internal costs that that company has to recover because they paid out less commission to us. That means there's lower policy charges, which means there's more efficient contract. And I'll kind of show you a couple examples. How do you tell if a policy is blended? Really, really easy. If you get a statement and you see death benefit coverage, the total death benefit versus base face coverage. If the base is the same as the total, that means it's not blended. That means it was fully commissionable. If you see a contract that has a total death benefit of 5 million, and then you see the base at 1.2, that means all of these other things here are different versions of blending, and they can be called different things based off of the company, with a little bit different terminology, but you compare base to total, and if those are the same, means not blended. Now, some products you can't blend, some carriers don't have blendable products. So that's part of the problem is not all these policies that are out there are built the same that give you the flexibility to control this blending process. We use blended products whenever we can. Sometimes a non-blended product is the most efficient product out there. Great. We'll bring that to the table. But one of the things we do is we disclose what our commission is or how we're getting paid in the blend, and I'll show you that. So this is an example, and we're not trying to promote this except for to show it as an example for high net worth, ultra affluent clients that are doing a lot of tax planning on their assets. A lot of times they're using permanent insurance as a vehicle to get that Roth-like tax wrapper, right? Money grows tax deferred and you can pull it out tax free. And if anybody isn't really familiar on how that happens or why or all that, we can have a follow-up conversation. But you can make a life insurance policy, it behaves like a Roth IRA, so you can use it for accumulation and distribution, very purposefully to create tax-free income streams, pensions. So a lot of executive compensation, non-qualified plans use insurance as the funding vehicle at the corporate level to carry out all of these future payouts or commitments, right? You can, and this is huge in the corporate world. Most people don't know that. You can do the same thing personally. So when you're in a high tax bracket, we do a lot of this type of planning. This is just an example of a Pac Life non-blended policy, the funding for 20 years, and then the tax-free income that comes out with a set of assumptions, 7% gross rate of assumption, and the cost of this allocation model is 52 bips. If you take the exact same product and you blend, we can get that tax-free income from 277 up to 323 per year for those 20 years, right? That's a difference of almost $1 million of tax-free income, all by us choosing, right, to make less money. Now, how do you know that? Up here is how we disclose. So on this policy right here for this 45-year-old male that is a preferred non-smoker, putting in $100,000 a year for 20 years, the target when it's not blended is $100,000. Roughly, an insurance person makes about 100%, sometimes a little bit more, on target. So our first year commission, if we sold this, would be $112,000. There's zero blend. So this is our disclosure. Over 10 years, we make $135,000 if we sold this product. Now, once again, I understand we get paid up front, but in theory, we're supposed to service this contract for 20, 30 years. So when you take this initial commission and you amortize it over a long period of time to that commitment, right, it is a far more reasonable amount of money relative to the account cash values and account values that are in here if you're charging like an AUM fee, right? So when you look at it in that big picture, but up front, we get money right up front. If we blend, so this is a max blended scenario, we lowered that target from 100 to 19. So that means we blended out 81% of the potential compensation to us. So we still get paid the same percentage on target. So we made 23,000 instead of 112 by selling the exact same thing. And you can see the blend here is maximum. Sometimes it'll say 50-50. And this is how we disclose to you. Now, we still need to run a business and provide all the value and all that. That costs money, that costs people. So we usually start at a 50-50 blend, and we'll blend more on bigger cases, less on smaller cases. But the point is, you know what we're doing, and we're disclosing that to you. Whether if you want to share that with the client, great. If you're pulling us in to do an education with the client, we're happy to disclose any of this that you see fit and warranted to do that. But you can see it makes an immense difference on this cash value driven income, tax-free income driven scenario. This is the same, right? And this is the breakdown of what the comp difference is. The cash values are very different. The income is very different, all by us choosing to change our compensation amount percentage. Here's another one that's not cash value driven. This one is cost driven. They want a death benefit. They don't care about the cash values as much. They care about getting a death benefit. So this is a 65-year-old male, $5 million death benefit, 20 pay. This is a unblended contract. This is the premium that would be necessary to pay for 20 years to get this to happen. So you can see over 20 years, you're paying $3.2 million for a $5 million death benefit. The cash value is 2.8. Here's the compensation those first 2 years. And you can see how the cash surrender value is a direct reflection of the compensation that's paid out to the agent. Over here to the right is a max blended contract, exact same carrier, exact same product, no different. And you can see that if we blend an 80-20, meaning 20% base, that cost goes from 160 to 100, just under 129. You start seeing cash value in year 1 and 2, but they pay in $600,000 less in premium, have the exact same policy, and have the exact same roughly cash value at year 20. We made $55,000 over the first 2 years versus 254, but the client got the exact same thing, right, for a lot less money. And from this standpoint with gifting, that means there's $636,000 of less annual exclusions they had to use, right, towards their legacy and estate planning objectives, all by how we did what we did. So it has an enormous impact. But once again, very rarely do you ever see this. And it's not malice in our industry. We've been going around sharing this story for about 15 years since we created WealthPoint, talking to the best of the U's, the best of the estate planning, CPAs, family offices. And when we share this, probably 70-75% of the time, from those top level advisors, the thing we hear of, I've never heard this. Nobody's ever shared this with me. And a lot of it is most of the insurance community doesn't know you can do this unless you got pulled into an environment with a product suite that had the capabilities of doing this, and you had a philosophical design to the firm to encourage this. Most of the people in our industry, just from a survival or from a business perspective, they don't have 35 people like we do, and staff that does underwriting, staff that does case design, staff that does reviews. So they have one or two people, and they go hunt clients, and they wine and dine 20 clients a year to get 4 or 5 to buy a permanent policy. So that compensation on those 4 or 5 pays for all the hunting. Just a different model, and that's okay. It's different. We're just trying to create a different system for fiduciary advisors to plug into and enhance value and efficiency for the client. Polling question number 1. Stop right here.
And folks, once this gets launched, you'll have 2 minutes to get it answered. Are you all seeing the question?
Yep.
Okay,
I
right.
did.
I just want to make sure. Normally it gives me like all the tick marks of how many are answering it, and then I don't, maybe it's something different this time. Awesome.
And Mike, just to kind of summarize and put a cap on blended versus unblended. Blended is essentially, to try to define it in layman terms here, you're using almost like different products on the menu underneath of that policy to select different types of coverage to ultimately get the same characteristics as a prior policy. And then obviously you guys are in essence a cost-effective solution to that yourselves. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, except for you're not getting a different product. You're getting the exact same product. It's just you're shifting death benefit from a compensationable bucket to a non-compensationable bucket. But same permanent insurance. It's not you're taking a base policy and then overlaying a 20-year term policy that goes away. It's a permanent policy. It's just, where's the load factor on that cost, right?
You mentioned a lot of folks in the industry don't necessarily know or obviously present this. Is it that they know it in the back of their mind, but they're going to make less money if they do it, or they just don't know it, period?
Well, honestly, I was at New York Life for 10 years of my 28-year career. New York Life has an agency system, right? And not that it's bad, but the person that hired me got paid on a percentage of my commission. The person that ran the office got paid a percentage, the regional person, right? There's layers of compensation to the hierarchy based off of my sales. So the incentive to encourage this is not there. Not to say they're bad people, but New York Life did not have products to do that, right? So it's multiple things in the industry that's just, the industry's kind of broken and it hasn't gone through its upsetting and change yet. And I don't know if it will. And here's my simple analogy, probably more than you want to know, but back in your world, years ago, you bought A, B, and C shares, right? And the C share was the front end loaded commission. C share was the annual revenue, right? If you held the same mutual fund for 20 or 30 years, the A share outperformed the C share, right? But the misalignment occurred, so people would change shares to get paid. In our world, a permanent life insurance policy is a thing you hold for 20, 30, 40 years. So if we build in a reoccurring revenue model like yours in it, that policy becomes more expensive and less efficient. It aligns us better to the client, but it creates a more costly product over time. So I don't see that changing much. But our mission is how do we deliver the best A share option to the fiduciary advisor that is aligned with your structure of client maintenance and client deliverable? Now you can plug in the best A share into that system, right? So the client wins. So that's how we think.
Nice.
So informal versus informal underwriting. So one of the things that is embedded in this cost structure forever is what rating class you got when you went through underwriting. The point here is how much effort is getting put into exploring the full market to get the best possible options. That's not done. Some people have the capabilities, but it takes staff, time. We have to, in our world, when a client comes in, we take an informal application. We go order doctor's records. We go order the exam. We pay for all that. We have the client, we have an interview with the client to go through to make sure all of the way they answered all these questions is dialed in. After we read through the doctor's records, there's some uncertainty. We might interact with the client again. We create a file, and then we send that out to the carriers that are the most competitive carriers for that product suite or choice. They underwrite that application or that informal application as if it's a formal application and give us offers, preferred, standard, whatever. Then we talk directly to the underwriter and we negotiate. So not that we can influence an underwriter and get them to make silly or stupid decisions. It doesn't happen. But we can influence with our interaction, different education, different points of view, different influence, and sometimes get a better outcome. But more importantly, they know they're fighting for this business against other carriers, right? So it creates a different environment, almost like an auction, right? So what happens is we're fighting to make sure we explore the full market to get the best possible options with the best products, with blendable products to get the best possible outcome. That's not done in most systems, right? People will say it, doesn't mean they do it. Sometimes their systems just don't allow it, period, right? So what's important about this is that effort put into that, and we have 3 people that's all they do on the underwriting side, right, is take people through this process. And what happens is we'll send out the same set of information, the same file to a bunch of different carriers. So they're looking at the exact same information and it'll come back this different. It's amazing. So one carrier, American General, is saying, and Securian is saying, this is not even a normal healthy person. We're going to charge them more by creating a table B. And then we have some carriers, Penn Mutual, that has a preferred plus. That difference in cost structure is enormous, right? Here's the difference on the same policy between a preferred rating and a standard rating. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of a lifetime. Here's the difference on cash values. So the real big point is how much effort is getting put in to controlling the costs in this world. Very rarely is there a lot of effort put in that, or the company just doesn't have the systems to do it, right? And it makes an enormous difference. So when you tack on blending plus this, what we're trying to deliver to you is your client, if they implement a product, nobody's going to ever be able to come behind them, right, and say there's a better solution out there in a more efficient pricing model or cash value system without there being assumptions that are not realistic, right? Just like in your world, proper assumptions is the foundation to creating a plan to deliver to the client. Right, question number 2, that came quick. Okay, great. I'll move on if everybody had a chance there. It has to stay up here for a period of time, right, Tom?
You can minimize it and go on. Everybody will still see it and be able to answer it. Just have to do it within 2 minutes.
So leveraging wealth points. So this is kind of the I want to say best practices process that we've created and built to hopefully create the most value for a fiduciary professional like a CPA attorney. Is how do you deliver a great experience without spending a ton of time doing it and have confidence in that? So there's a couple areas that we can be of value. One is onboarding a client. If you onboard a new client and they have insurance, great. Feel free. We're built that you can just say, hey, summarize these. What do you see? Create a summary for me. What do you see? What are issues? Are there kind of red flags that I should be kind of potentially talk to the client about? All that kind of information. We're here to do that, and we're happy to do that. If you have existing clients, right, that you're better clients that you know have insurance policies, and say, great, I want to just do a deep dive due diligence. Is there value we can create there in this conversation? Send those to us. Same thing. If a client is being pitched something, we see this all the time. Premium finance is getting pushed. Say, hey, it's free insurance, and look at, right, you can go borrow money and get free insurance and get tax-free income, and it pays for itself and all that, right? That's what they're getting told and sold, not reality. But if a client's seeing something like that and they're bringing it up to you, forward it over to us, and then behind the scenes, we can work with you and talk through, here's the issue. We'll do a lot of analysis of breaking down all the assumptions that are incorrect and all that kind of stuff to help you navigate that with the client. Or you just hear a concept or a strategy, right? Whether philosophically your firm believes in it or not, right? Clients are going to hear it from friends and other professionals. So our belief is, great, if this accumulation, distribution, tax-free income thing isn't philosophically a part of HoyleCohen, fantastic. But if you want to spend the time to learn it, how it's done the right way, what it should look like to help clients avoid getting sold really, not efficient stuff, or you just are trying to say, great, should this be something I bring up to the client proactively versus waiting for them to hear it, via a friend at the charity or country club or whatever organization they're in, and then I have to be on the defensive. Why don't I go at this, proactively? Great, we're here for any of that. So if you, in a perfect world, you thought of us as a partner, say, great, I can call them on anything and just brainstorm and talk through, right? It doesn't have to be about, here's a policy to potentially sell. It can be, I just need help. Help me add value. Typical process. So in a perfect world, if there's trust created and you know how we're going to behave and this becomes a value proposition to the client, one of the things is just send us documents, statements. We can send an NDA so that the confidence of not sharing client identity and issues. Great. We do this for a living and work with a lot of really wealthy people that this is really important to us, just like to you. So it's kind of a unwritten rule, but if we need an NDA, fantastic. We'll get you that. Send us the documents and we'll just go through, we'll summarize it. And then a lot of times what I do is I'll send a quick video back with the summary and just walk through what I see. I see this is not blended. It's this carrier, it's this product, whatever it is. Then we usually coordinate a 15-minute conversation with you to go through what is the client really trying to do, right? And I'll make a point here really quick that in our world, what is so important is when you're trying to build the best product, there's only two ways you're doing it. You're either building it for death benefit focused objective, meaning I need $5 million of insurance for estate planning. And when you're doing that, the efficiency occurs for this death benefit. What's the lowest premium I can pay to get what I want, creating the greatest IRR or efficiency? That's one option. The other option is I'm trying to control this cash value to optimize my accessibility to it, the amount that's in this creditor protected state, or the amount of tax-free income I can get. you have to take the objectives to one of those two purposes, because these are very different products, very different companies, very different designs. The problem is most policies are in the middle, doing neither well. So my analogy is like playing tennis. You either want to be at the net or at the baseline. You don't want to get caught in the middle. You just can't perform as well. It's the same with a life insurance policy. And that's where most of them are. They're not blended, one. And then two is it's the wrong product and it's in the middle doing neither of these well. So my first objective in this conversation is, what is the objective from your part, from your perspective in the planning? Is it death benefit driven or is it cash value driven? Great. Once we knew that, then what we can do is create a set of objectives and goals, and you share the client fact pattern and situation and say, okay, here's what I'm trying to see, or here's what I want these policies to do with this new set of goals and objectives. Then we go get in-force illustrations. Every carrier is different here. A lot of times we can get a letter of authorization and go request them for you, or we might need to call in with the client. Sometimes that you have the relationship with the insurance person, I'll tell you what to ask for, but they need to be very specific, not just get me an in-force illustration. Most of the time those are useless because it's not creating an objective for this policy to perform to. Once we get those in-force illustrations, we'll conduct a market study. Here's what you have relative to this set of goals and objectives compared to the market. And we summarize that. And then a lot of times I'll make a video, send that to you, get your eyes on it, you'll go through it, and then say tweak things based off of what you want to see. And then a lot of times we're helping educate, present, share with the client, so you're not trying to sell insurance. You're not getting caught in those conversations of what if, and you're like, I don't know. I just know what we talked about for this. I don't know how to answer that question, right? I got to go back to the WealthPoint team. Great. We're here just to have those conversations directly with the client. We'll behave in a very non-selling, analytical, solution-driven conversation, right? Educate and share options. Then you and your client make a decision, and then we're here to implement and help. This is an example of what a policy summary looks like. So this person just sent over a bunch of the policies. Now, when I look at these policies, I see whole lives. I see ages, the length of how long the policy's been in place. Now, I don't have all the values, but a lot of times I can say this is inefficient. I can just tell by looking at it, the cash value relative to the death benefit is inefficient. The funding, something's off, right? Whatever that is. And I can kind of share that with you prior to like the conversation. What we do see as important is the more information from you and the more we're collaborating, the better the outcome is in the options, the creativity, and the value that's created, right? So that interaction is very important. The other thing I can say by interacting with hundreds of firms and thousands of advisors is that translation of information is so important, because it'd be like, I'm a CFP, but I don't do what you do. So if I was trying to create an allocation and transfer the information you take to a client on the allocation with the current market conditions, I could not do that as well as you to get the client to truly understand what we're doing. Now, I'm licensed, I have the education and knowledge, but I'm not doing that every day to translate that, right? It's the same in our world, and a lot of stuff gets lost in translation and information exchange. So we're here to participate in any of those Zoom meetings, whatever. Whether a new product can be sold or not, that's what we're here for, right? So just education. Letters of authorization, all the carriers have different forms. A letter of authorization, what gives us the authority by the client signing the letter of authorization, or the owner of the policy, I should say, allows us to request information. It doesn't change agent of record. It doesn't change any of the integrity of the contract and the relationship. It just gives us the ability to request information. So some carriers allow that, some don't. So unfortunately, sometimes we have to call in to a carrier with the client, we'll call in first, get a human being on the line, then three-way the client in, get the authorization to request what we need. So we'll take the time to do that instead of you having to do that and be on hold for an hour a lot of times to do stuff like that. This is a sample what a letter of authorization looks like. Generic in-force illustrations. We see this all the time. We'll have a conversation with the advisor. The advisor will go, great, I'm gonna go get in-force illustrations. They come back and those in-force illustrations are not impactful for what we're trying to solve for at all, because the as sold illustration was built for the policy to do something 20 years ago versus today. So they need to be very specific in-force requests. So it would be things, so you can see in this one how this death benefit continues to increase over time with the cash value, but they continue making premium payments. Why? What's the purpose there? Is there an objective there? Why couldn't we request make no future premium payments, levelize the death benefit going forward? You know, that we can request very specific things. And this is an example of that, especially if we're trying to control cash values. How you request loans is very important. The rate of return assumptions you use, dropping death benefit to minimize expenses. All those things are very specific things that you have to specifically ask for an illustration, or it doesn't come back the way it should. And even if we request very specific, exact instructions on an in-force illustration, 50% of the time they come back incorrect, because most carriers are not built to do very precise, purposeful things with insurance. It's kind of very generic. And the people that are doing them, this is usually the training grounds for their educational system to go through the corporate structure. So we have to get involved a lot to get the correct ones that are meaningful and impactful. It takes a lot of time. It's a pain, right? But we're here to do all that stuff. Take that off your plate. Here's a real quick example of, we requested the client wanted to do a market study. They had about this gentleman had about $973,000 of cash value in his contract, right? The death benefit was not as important. What he wanted is to create this tax-free income. He bought these as a creditor protected bucket of money and that Roth-like tax-free income objective. So these to the right is the summary of his 2 current policies with no future premium and what's the tax-free income starting at age 61 for 20 years. Now, this is cut off for the sake of fitting on the page, but they're exactly the same. We made it, the policy last to age 105, all that kind of stuff. But you can see, once again, a $33,000 delta there, which is almost like a 40-some% enhanced return by having a different product that's built to do that versus the 2 they have that's in the middle doing neither thing well. It can be pretty drastic. Post, after the presentation, then it's implementation, right? On, yes, we're going to do this. If we probably 10 to 15% of the time, what the client has is what they should have. It's the best thing out there. Great. We got confirmation of that. So even if we go through this exercise to potentially make a better thing, or the thought is there, if we can't, it's still a great outcome, right? That hopefully you didn't take too much time. That was on our side of the ledger, that we validated and proved what they have is the best thing they should have, and they should keep it. And you can check that off the box as a value-driven, exercise. Because sometimes we'll come back and we go through underwriting, informal underwriting, and the people health-wise can't get what we want. And we had a scenario where the advisor got kind of frustrated saying, well, I thought we were going to make this better. And I said, we tried, but the reality is we explored all options, and we can check the box that, no, this is the best possible thing. They should keep this, and they should know that with confidence that they never need to question this thing, right? So the outcome is still a favorable value proposition versus We didn't save them money, but we realized this is the best possible thing or outcome you can have. Standard of care, reviewing these. Our industry makes a huge mistake in the policy maintenance. And then what happens is so much of the bias that you feel comes from the products that were not maintained. Maybe they were missold, maybe, but if they're not maintained, they're going to go awry. And it's like not rebalancing a portfolio, right? And all of a sudden the S&P did what the S&P did, and all of a sudden you meet a 75-year-old that has an 80-20 allocation mix just because of the performance of one's asset class. And you're going, oh my gosh, the risk versus love. When in reality, right, it started off okay, just nobody maintained it and rebalanced and did what was supposed to be done. Same in our world. So a lot of these fallacies that occur is, yes, there is definitely the upfront design was not done optimally, but lack of maintenance takes an okay thing and then makes it bad, as opposed to if you had an okay thing and you kept maintaining it, you could still have an okay thing, right? Most of the time, because you can make adjustments and tweaks and change realistic assumptions and things like that. But when it's not maintained, it gets to the point that it looks horrible, and then you see a lot of those and go, these insurance people out here are horrible. They don't know what they're doing. I think the reality is the maintenance system is drastically undervalued and not implemented. And part of it is compensation system isn't there. Or I can say this as a fact. When I was at New York Life, right? Fantastic company, strong company, immense compliance system. The problem with the compliance system is they had to corral 12,000 agents out there slinging insurance and selling stuff. So what happens is they limit what you can do. So the way we do our annual review, which is here's the in-force illustration, here's the current illustration, here's the allocation mix, here's the performance. I could not do it New York Life because the standards on what can be shown to control all these 12,000 people was so limited. You had to take here's an in-force illustration, look at that, versus create a true analysis. So there's just some inherent problems when you have 12,000 people you got to control and create compliance standards around. So us at WealthPoint, the ability to deliver things, I would never be able to do in New York Life because of that. Now, what we deliver is, 100-fold better than this, but right, it's just because we have a greater window and ability to bring stuff to the table that you couldn't in that environment. So it's not always the people, it's a lot of times the systems with good intention, but just not, optimized. And the same thing happens in your world too, in just different scenarios. So we have a system of due care. Pulse of policies that every year, every other year. We'll take clients through every 5 years. If health is improved, we'll take them through the informal underwriting process to try to get the existing carrier to adjust the rating class to make it better. You can do that, and we've done that many a times. So if we think the health has changed, great, we'll do an insurance verification study. We have a fiduciary audit process for clients that have ILETs, and you have insurance in an ILET. That trustee technically has a fiduciary responsibility. We can create a little bit different version of a policy review, right, for that objective, whether it's an institution like Northern Trust or whoever, right? We can create a system for that. Polling question number 3.
And then after this, Mike, I think we're down to Q&A.
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, well, we'll open it up now just because I know we're coming up on the hour. Mike and I both have hard stops at 10 o'clock. Are there any questions from anything we've gone over?
Can you do a 2-minute synopsis of the Supreme Court ruling recently for
Thank you.
business owners?
Yes, thank you for the
Thank you
reminder.
for bringing that up. So the Conley case, if you work with business owners, right, The main effect of the Conley case was in an entity purchase buy-sell structure where the company owns the policies and is the beneficiary of those policies. What the stance they took was, if Bob and I are partners and I passed away and we had a $5 million policy on each of us, so my death benefit went into the company with the understanding that the company was going to redeem my wife's shares. What the IRS is saying is that company now has a valuation of $5 million more than what it did prior for estate planning. So the value of the company just went like this, which is technically not the case. It shouldn't be the case because that insurance is there very purposely for that buyout objective. What should you do about this? What I would do is, any business owner that you have a holistic planning relationship with, is get their buy sell and just say, hey, we should look at this. Get their buy sell. Is it an any purchase or cross purchase? If it's a cross purchase and Bob and I own policies on each other, irrelevant, right? If I pass away, the death benefit goes to Bob. Bob gets that death benefit tax free and then comes and buys my shares from my wife. Great. Does not affect this ruling at all. It's only the entity buy-sell structure that's questioned here. So I would just request to see the buy-sell. That also gives you a chance to look at the funding of the buy-sell. When we look at these, they're never funded right. The buy-sell doesn't have all the contingencies of death, disability, divorce, voluntary leave, fraud, enforced retirement in them. So we can help you kind of add value in that. The funding usually isn't right. But more importantly, what that also could open up is, a lot of times we're looking at a buy-sell between owners, but there's executive compensation planning they want to do for key people. There's great ways to combine that and create real efficiency. So I guess what I would take away from that is, if they have an entity purchase, it needs to be looked at. And the solution to that is change that to a cross purchase where each party owns insurance on the other. Or what we do a lot is, we'll create a partnership buy sell or an LLC that Bob and I own, that holds our policies in it, versus having a cross purchase for all kinds of different reasons. But those are the kind of two solutions or paths you would take from that entity purchase buy sell structure. So, and we're here for any of that, right? So I hope you leave with, one is our knowledge base is really, really high in tax, estate planning, working with business owners. We get your world. We have CFPs here. We're just a brain trust and a partner to brainstorm things with from a different set of eyes, and hopefully add value there. If you work with business owners, great. Say, hey, I just want to schedule a time to talk through some things and get perspective or get ideas or whatever. Great. We love doing that, right? And as you know, when you do, your holistic planning, it's very rarely ever done well or complete. So there's always gaps in things, and that's where hopefully we can bring some ideas, solutions, information, whatever, to help plug some of those gaps or enhance value in those different areas, right, that aren't your niche for what you do.
Awesome.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Bob, for all the coordination and everything that went into putting this together. Thank you all for your time. Sorry we have to cut it off right on the hour. We're just booked solid today, but I will reach out to each of you individually. You'll either get the survey from myself or Kristen Teff at our firm, and then I'll reach out just to see if there were any follow-up questions or any other thoughts that you didn't get a chance to express today. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.